In this brief video, we'll discuss Soren Kierkegaard's characterology, his ideas on depression, anxiety, and normalcy. To do this, we'll use the Earth's gravitational field as an analogy. First of all, Soren Kierkegaard was a Danish philosopher, theologian, and social critic. He lived 1813 to 1855 and is widely considered the first existentialist. To give you a flavor of Kierkegaard's ideas, he said that terror, perdition, and annihilation dwell next door to every man. If that's not existential, I don't know what is. His whole understanding of the person's character is that it's a structure built up to avoid the perception of this annihilation. Today, we use terms like repression and denial when talking about character defenses, which is the avoidance Kierkegaard was talking about. This is the Earth with some rings to represent its gravitational field. In our analogy, the Earth represents nature or biology. As biological creatures, nature is something we are stuck with. Nature is the limiting factor. As humans with imagination and technology, we are trying to transcend nature. This dichotomy, that we are beyond nature and yet hopelessly stuck in it, is the existential paradox. Psychologically, nature, and the annihilation that Kierkegaard mentioned, has a gravitational field. For instance, one way humans have psychically fought the gravity of existentialism is religion, which we can think of as reaching orbit. There are lesser, more reasonable ways humans, particularly in modern times, challenge the gravitational pull of physical annihilation. The first layer is our character, which we develop in our early years. As babies, toddlers, and into childhood, we subconsciously confront our helpless condition. We constantly need help, and for many of us, in the form of our parents, especially mothers, that help comes. In short, we control our parental units and feel immortal. Soon enough, we realize we are separate from our parents. This is our first fall from grace. We need to develop a relationship with our own bodies, develop personalities, get along socially with others. We develop a character, and this is our first and most important layer that defends us from annihilation. Through this character, more things are possible. The ego is life reaching for more life. If the character was a result of a fall from the mother or the feminine, the next layer or ring of gravity to breach is the masculine. This is the cultural layer. As we come through childhood, we learn that further power to psychologically overcome annihilation can be found in cultural dominion. We ignore existential truths while fighting for the nation, working for the company, fostering a family, achieving status and attaining wealth, all to feel immortal. This is the reality for most adults throughout their lives. Through culture, we gain more possibility. Somewhere within the cultural layer is what we can classify as normal. For perspective, when some knee-buckling moment happens injecting chaos into your cultural reality, we fall towards our existential reality. But for the strong-willed, that fall stops due to strong character defenses. In a way, character and culture can be seen as protective lies. And whoever lies best has the best defense, aka has the best repression and denial mechanisms, aka is the most normal. There are more layers within character and culture. But for this video about depression, anxiety, and normalcy, this basic understanding will do. But before we get there, topics like existentialism and mental health are difficult to go alone. For perceptive people in modern times, these topics are almost inevitable. I'm enjoying making these videos and see this community of like-minded people grow. Your contribution by subscribing to this channel and commenting below goes a long way. Thank you. So what about depression and anxiety? To start, depression is when real possibility doesn't exist. Depression is when your character doesn't prop you up against the gravity of existence. And this time, there are no parents to depend on for immortality. Willard Galen explains it best. He said, "When the adult gives up hope in his ability to cope and sees himself incapable of either fleeing or fighting, he is reduced to a state of depression. This very reduction, with its parallel to the helplessness of infancy, becomes a plea for a solution to the problem of survival via dependency. The very stripping of one's defenses becomes a form of defensive maneuver." Galen is talking about the clinical depression where one can't get out of bed and is dependent on others. The more common type of depression is one where people get stuck depending not on others but on culture. They float within culture without bearing on the character defenses below them. Kierkegaard said about this inconspicuous depression, "The loss of possibility signifies either that everything has become necessary to man or that everything has become trivial."
Okay, so throw pillows go in this cabinet here.
Do you remember a time in your life when everything you did was necessary, when there was no possibility of not doing, when there was no choice?
Oh, you don't sleep on these?
No, they're decorative.
Or do you remember a time in your life when everything seemed trivial, to mean little in the whole scheme? Or, and worst of all, do you remember a time when everything that was trivial was also necessary, where you were totally stuck in a meaningless routine? That is depression.
I see what the big deal is. Make the bed look nice.
Hey! What are you doing?
So if for Kierkegaard depression was the absence of possibility, then anxiety is the overabundance of possibility. In our analogy, anxiety is when you break out of orbit and are lost in space. Kierkegaard wrote, "Generally, the fantastical is that which so carried a man out into the infinite that it merely carries him away from himself, and therewith prevents him from returning to himself. The self thus leads a fantastic existence in abstract endeavor after infinity, or in abstract isolation constantly lacking itself from which it merely gets further away." Just like how people can be depressed within culture, people can be anxious within culture as well. Kierkegaard writes, "But while one sort of despair plunges wildly into the infinite and loses itself, a second sort permits itself as it were to be defrauded by the others. Such a man forgets himself, does not dare to believe in himself, finds it too venturesome to be himself, far easier and safer to be like the others, to become an imitation, a number, a cipher in the crowd." So depression is too much necessity, and anxiety is too much possibility. Without drawing strength and possibility from our character, we become depressed. Without drawing guidance and necessity from our character, we become anxious. In this way, character development is key and is a lifelong process. If character is not dipped into here and there, one risks losing the motivation or guidance needed to maintain. Last of all, normalcy should not be the goal, but rather a state that we sometimes are within. So the antidote for depression is possibility, and the antidote for anxiety is necessity. If you're depressed, do something that seems impossible.
Hey! What are you doing? That's goose down.
I'm liberating you. Try it.
No, I'm not gonna.
Just one stab. Come on, see how you feel. Come on.
This is ridiculous.
Oh, not ridiculous.
It's not like driving a knife into a pillow is suddenly gonna make me feel... Wow, that feels really good.
If you're anxious, do something necessary you may have been avoiding.
That's you, Ruben. You do that, right? That's what you do. I don't live my life that way.
Is your lack of a plan that different than my plan?
I don't have a plan.
Yes, you do. You're on the non-planned plan.
I am not on a non-planned plan.
You are too. I've never met anybody more afraid of committing to anything.
I hope this interpretation of Kierkegaard helps you, or helps you help somebody you know who is struggling with mental illness. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want. I hope you all have a great day.